Guys, so the first thing that I'm going to be talking about today is the heart. So I'm going to be going over kind of like labeling the heart and the pathway of the heart, and then just the different kinds of like circuits that we have in the heart. So I think what people do is when they're first learning about the heart, they get really tripped up on it. It can be really confusing, especially in a lecture where it's just kind of thrown at you. So I hope this video, if you watch it, if it really helps you. And if it does, just leave me a comment below if you have any questions. That would be really helpful just to me. So when you're first learning about the heart, it's very helpful to remember that when you're looking at the picture, our right and our left side are reversed when you're learning about anything in the human body. So remember that to us, our right side, when we're looking at this picture, is actually going to be our left side. So I'm just going to label that as left, and this is the right, because it's opposite. All right? So the next thing that we have is we're going to label it. So I'm going to use, I'm going to like abbreviate the stuff, but I'm going to say the full name for you guys. So you can find this picture online. It's probably in your textbook or something similar to that. So the first thing that I do is I label kind of the main parts of the heart. Okay, so like my atriums and ventricles. All right, so our atriums and ventricles, sometimes people get confused on those. But our atriums, remember that the word atrium is shorter than ventricle. So these are going to be our atriums. So we have our right atrium and we have our left atrium. All right. So once you notice, like, when you're able to say, okay, something's like the ventricle, something is the atrium, it's really easy once you know if you can identify if it's like an atrium or a ventricle, and then you have your right and left sides. That's easiest way to remember it. It's not confusing at all if you kind of break it down into little pieces. Our ventricles are bigger. So we have our left ventricle and our right ventricle. Mind you that the left ventricle is going to be the thicker side or the thicker wall of the heart, because when you look at it, you can see that it has more muscle than the right ventricle. The right ventricle wall is much thinner than the left. The next thing that we're looking at is we are going to look at the valves. So in the heart, as we can see, we have three kind of like valves in the heart, main valves. So on the right atrium, splitting the right atrium to the ventricle is the tricuspid valve. So I'm going to put TV. If you look at it, we have our cords down at the bottom. I remember the tricuspid valve that it has 3 cords. So I'll kind of like look it up for you. So there's 1 cord, there's our 2nd cord, and then there's our 3rd cord. Okay, so tri means 3 cords. This is our bicuspid valve. So bi means 2, first cord, and then our 2nd cord. Okay. The next thing that we have is we have our pulmonary veins. So these are actually some call it the pulmonary veins, some call it the opening of the pulmonary veins. It's basically the same thing. So remember again, if you just write this, if you're ever labeling it and you're like, okay, I know that these are pulmonary valves, do your right and left side again, that they're the opposite. So this is going to be your left pulmonary valve. This is going to be your right pulmonary valve. And then the next thing is we are going to do our ascending aorta. So this is our ascending aorta. And then we have our the pulmonary trunk. So this is the pulmonary trunk. And I'm just going to put palm trunk. And then the thing in the middle, like the valve by the pulmonary trunk, and the way we know that if it's a valve is you can kind of see the way it folds. Look at its folds. You can see that it's going to open and it's going to close when blood comes in or out of it. Okay? So that is just called our pulmonary valve. That's it. And then I think we labeled everything right now. The next thing is just we have our like superior vena cava. This is our superior vena cava. This is our inferior vena cava. All right. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about the right side, and I'm going to talk about the left side. So I'm actually going to make this blue. Okay. So I'll explain later. So, or actually right now. So the right side, why I made that blue is because it's a deoxygenated side. Okay. So this is our deoxygenated. Okay. Then our left side is going to be our oxygenated side. Just remember this. It will really help. So, our right side, deoxygenated side, is actually called our pulmonary. It's called our pulmonary circuit or circulation. That is going to move blood kind of like between the heart and the lungs. Okay, so it actually is transporting the deoxygenated blood to the lungs so that it can absorb, so the lungs can absorb that oxygen and it can get rid of the carbon dioxide. We don't want carbon dioxide, okay? All right, so then the oxygenated blood is going to flow back to the heart, okay? So our deoxygenated side is just releasing carbon dioxide. Our systemic circuit or systematic circuit, however you say it, is going to move blood between the heart and the rest of the body, okay? So it's kind of confusing, but remind you that the right side is deoxygenated, it's pulmonary, okay? So remember that right side deoxygenated, bear with me, confusing, okay? Right side is deoxygenated. The right side, everything, all of this in the right side is going from the heart to the lungs, okay? That is pulmonary circuit. The left side of the heart is our oxygenated side, okay? So, in the oxygenated side of the left side of the heart is called our systemic circuit. That is going to move blood from the heart to the rest of the body, okay? It's not going to our lungs. The only circuit that's going to our heart and the lungs is pulmonary. Remember that pulmonary is related to heart and lungs. Systemic is related to heart and the rest of the body. All right? So now I'm going to kind of go over the path of blood between the heart, like throughout the heart. So here we go. So we're starting from the right side, deoxygenated, pulmonary, okay? So the lungs. So it's coming in through the superior vena cava, all right? So I'm having blood coming in through here. Can't really see that, but I'm having blood coming in from the superior vena cava. From that superior vena cava, I'm going to have the blood coming into the right atrium, which is going to be through here. From that right atrium, it's going to move into the tricuspid valve, which is right here. So it's moving in through here. After the tricuspid valve, it's going into the right ventricle, which is through here. So the blood's going through here. From the right ventricle, it's going to move up to that pulmonary valve. So it's going to go in here. From that pulmonary valve, it's going to go through the pulmonary trunk. From the pulmonary trunk, it's pumped out into the lungs. Okay? So remember that the right side of the heart is through the lungs. From the pulmonary trunk, blood is going to the lungs. The left side of the heart. All right, so the left side of the heart is the oxygenated side. It's that systemic circuit. And I'm just going to erase these arrows to kind of help better understand it and see it. So the left side is that it's coming through the pulmonary veins, okay? So it's coming in through here. Sometimes when you like read about it or look it up, a lot of a lot of the textbooks don't mention that it's the left pulmonary veins. You can just say pulmonary veins, or you can say left pulmonary veins. It really doesn't matter. But they're coming in through the pulmonary veins. From the pulmonary veins, they're in the left atrium. From that left atrium, they're going into our bicuspid valve. I also forgot to mention here that our bicuspid valve is also called our mitral valve. Okay, so your professors probably most likely will call it your mitral valve. All right, so I'll just write this down here that bicuspid is also our mitral valve, just so you don't forget. Bicuspid is also mitral. All right, from that bicuspid mitral valve, it's going into our left ventricle. So it's going through here. From that left ventricle, it's going through our our aortic valve. Okay, so it's going from our aortic valve, and actually our aortic valve is going to be, it's real confusing when you look at it, because actually this is our aortic valve. I didn't want to confuse anybody, but here, this is our aortic valve. So it's going through the aortic valve, and then it's actually, you can't see it, but it's going to kind of go like under that pulmonary valve, and then it's going to go through our aorta, and then out through like the rest of the body. So this whole thing is called our aorta, and then our ascending aorta is kind of like right here. So that is the left side of the heart, okay? So I'm sorry that I forgot to mention the aortic valve, but I think that a lot of people, when they go on to like describe the heart, they don't mention it. Because I didn't mention it right now is because it's very hard to kind of like see, but when you're tracing the pathway of the heart, it's easier to see. So I kind of want to show you guys a little bit. Okay, so this is our aortic valve, is like right here, but you can't see it because it's blocked, but it's actually going under our pulmonary valve. So it's like here, but you can't see it. It's kind of a little bit confusing, but it will get easier. So the left side is the pulmonary veins, the left atrium, the mitral valve, the left ventricle, the aortic valve, the aorta, and then it goes throughout the rest of the body. Okay? So, remember, the right side is that deoxygenated side. It's the lungs. Pulmonary circuit is the heart and the lungs. Left side is our oxygenated. It is our systemic circuit. And I think there's one thing that I forgot to mention. So I want everyone to understand this. This is the key thing in this kind of like little lesson that I'm teaching. So I want everybody, and I'm gonna kind of make this in like a different color. So I'll just do like orange. Because I want you to understand this if you're still here. So our arteries. So arteries are actually taking blood away from the heart. Okay? And our veins carry blood. All right? So our arteries are actually taking blood away from the heart, whereas our veins are carrying blood back to the heart. So it carries blood. Carrying blood? I don't know. But our arteries taking blood away from the heart, whereas veins are carrying blood. I'm just going to put back to our heart. All right. So that is something, I guarantee you, something like this is going to show up on your like exam when you have like an exam that pertains to the heart. because it's very easy to get tripped up on, is because not a lot of professors really kind of talk to you about the different parts of the heart. But I just want you to remember that the arteries, because they could say what takes blood away from the heart. I don't know. It's probably wouldn't be as simple as that, but it would say something like there could be a bunch of different options, and they could all say the veins take blood away from the heart, and then the arteries carry blood back to the heart. That's not true. It's the other way around. So I know that on several of my exams, they always had questions that pertain to the arteries and veins and what took blood to and away from the heart. So I want you to remember that. So if you guys have any other questions, or if I missed something, please let me know.